Backbenchers is an informal yet focused learning space. We gather here together to explore and challenge the core questions that surrounds policy, governance, education, and development. This forum is inspired by critical thinkers, those often found on the backbenches of the class, who observe closely, ask necessary, often uncomfortable questions, and are committed to challenging what is generally accepted. I am Steffi from Adyan Foundation, and I'm dedicated to bridging the gap between field-based practitioner knowledge and the wider dissemination through our shared learning platform, Abhyas. Here we can maybe go to the next slide. And for our session to be more productive today, we would request everybody, if you all can come on your cameras, that would be really great. If you all can also rename yourselves, will be helping us to know who you are and where you have joined from. Please do add your name, rename yourselves with your name and your organization name. And we will be having a question answer session towards the end today. So, but don't wait until the end. If there are some questions that are coming to your mind, please jot them down, put them in the chat box. We are going to look at them towards the end. And if you are not sharing anything, please requesting you to keep your mics on mute so that we are able to hear clearly during this session when others are speaking. Divya, we haven't been able to. We can move to the next. And now the most interesting part, introducing our speaker. Let me introduce Natasha Zarin through a short story of her journey. Natasha grew up in a farm 3 hours away from Mumbai, where a seasonal stream flowed through the farm. And as a child during summer season, where the water wouldn't be too much, it wasn't flooded, but it was at the knee level, they would spend time exploring that stream. She, along with her neighbor, used to, go through the stream because the water was less, and they would explore fish, crabs, and different other things that were there. But sadly, it wouldn't go a long way because soon as they neared a village, that's where a lot of garbage would come in and a lot of unwanted things would pop up. So that was the end. They would stop there, and that's where Natasha started thinking, wondering how things could be different. And as she grew up, she continued with witnessing the similar environmental degradation happening both in Dahanu and Mumbai, which sparked a desire to create a change for her. And she thought of exploring law as a pathway, but then, she found a deeper direction through her Young India Fellowship at Ashoka University. There, she developed a stronger understanding of social and environmental challenges. And determined to make an impact, she co-founded EcoSatwa, and now she has dedicated herself to addressing civic and environmental issues through sustainability, community-led solutions. And today, please join me in welcoming Natasha to share the story of Kham River Restoration Project. I warmly welcome Natasha. Please go ahead and share your story with us. We are all waiting for it.
Thank you, Steffi, for this kind introduction and for this opportunity to speak to your team and the to the audience here to share a little bit of this story over the next 14 minutes, and then I guess we have Q&A and discussions. Really looking forward to the questions and looking forward to sharing this. Thank you for your interest and for the the back end discussions that we've had kind of arriving at today. So looking forward. I'll start sharing my screen. All right. Is it everything's okay? All right. So I just wanted to put this cover slide in about, whilst we discussed today, but I think you've already set the tone. We're talking about the Kham River restoration, and the brief is to go over all that it takes to, work on, to try to restore a river, and that it is not rocket science. It is actually common sense, simple steps, though they are not easy. And there are so many steps that have to be taken that there is a complexity to it, but it can be done. And if we at EcoSattva can do it, anyone can. So I think that's the message we want to give out. Um, I'll tell you a little bit about my organization, EcoSattva and Carpe. They're a hybrid organization. We work on systemic challenges. Specifically, EcoSattva works on challenges of where environment, civic, like ecology, civics kind of intersect. Okay, so whether it's waste management, green cover management, rivers, lakes, all of these, it's about people, it's about the environment. So we strive for inclusive, sustainable, and now climate resilient cities, towns, and villages. And we work in three main sectors. We worked in three main sectors, you could say: solid liquid waste management, so STPs, sewage treatment, and municipal solid waste management systems. Green cover, so sustainably restoring ecological landscapes that are degraded, plus like urban, small, dense forests, biodiverse recreational spaces, etc., and water bodies, lakes, rivers, streams. And while this is going to sound complex, I just want you to go with it because it's actually quite simple, right? We work on circularity, solid waste, and this is just a little more breakup of what we're doing, and I will come to it later, so I'm not going to go into the details of it. Blue-green spaces and community ownership. So when I talk about this river restoration, it's like a mix of all of these, of waste management, solid and liquid waste, green cover restoration, and of course, water bodies. So that's why it all comes together. And these are and communities. So if we look at only the Kham River Restoration Mission, it almost covers the entire district because there are streams, first order, second order, third order streams that cover it, that converge into the Kham. And so interventions can be all across. Now coming down to what we did. So first of all, the Kham River Restoration Mission, while I'm speaking about it, and I'm speaking on behalf of EcoSattva, my organization, but we're also, when we're talking about the Kham River Restoration Mission, it's multiple partners from the municipal corporation to the cantonment board, to most importantly, I would say, because for us is Varrock Foundation, Varrock Industries actually, that first decided that the Kham River needed to be worked on. It was not our decision. It was something that, Mr. Tarang Jain decided that needed to happen. And so he pulled us in, and then we could, pull all the various moving parts in. So just mentioning the four of these parties, as well as, of course, collector's office, forest department, SIDCO, multiple government bodies coming together, being brought together. So a little bit about the Kham River. It's a seasonal river, 52 kilometers long. Most rivers in India are seasonal rivers. It starts up north of Aurangabad city, or now it's called Chhatrapati Sambhajinagar. Flows 14 kilometers through the city and peri-urban area, and the rest of it through the rural areas, and goes and meets one major river in India, one of the major rivers of India. Any guesses? Anyone wants to shout out a name? No? Or is someone posting something?
Someone
Okay,
saying
in the
Godavari
chat.
on the chat.
Oops. I can Godavari? That's right. Godavari it is. It does meet the Godavari at the Jayakwadi Reservoir. And the Jayakwadi Reservoir is where all the fresh drinking water, fresh water for all the cities in this region, is supplied. So that's where it ends. And this is a drawing from 1813 of the Kham. Okay. So when I say the word Nadi, most people think of something like this, right? Wide, with lots of water flowing, blue, green, gray, open skies. That's what you imagine. But when I say the word Nala, this is what most people think of: sewage, garbage, a mess. Nobody wants to look at it. You want to cover your nose and get away from it as soon as possible. And the only use for it seems to be to let out sewage and garbage in most of our cities, towns, and villages. But the word Nala actually means a seasonal river, a river that carries rainwater, that mainly is fed by rainwater. So here you can see this is the Kham River, the same river before entering the city. And this is what she looks like 7 kilometers down. When we started, this was the case. So Nala is a perfectly, beautiful, ecologically sound, culturally relevant geological feature in our cities. But once it gets into the city, it turns into what we say. When we say a nala, most people think of a gutter or a sewer, and that's what we've turned it into in our collective imagination. And so that's going to be that's a major part of any kind of river restoration, seasonal river restoration, is to change that conception that nalas with all of this flowing through are not normal to have in cities. This is not how nalas are. Nalas are actually like this and should be like this while they go through the city. So when we started on this, really, and you look at Nala, this is also a small Nala. It's a small feeder Nala into the larger Kham Nala. And this site is not some, unique site. This site was seen a lot across the city in many parts. And you can see there is a challenge of waste. There's a challenge of sewage. There is an underground sewage system. Here you can see the manhole that's part of the underground sewage system, but you can still see sewage flowing up, on in the Nala. You can see crumbling infrastructure, inadequate infrastructure, no barricading, no trees, ecology all but squeezed out. It's basically a major challenge. And where do you even start, right? So when we looked at this project, we first told Mr. Jain that it looks really complicated and we don't know if we can do this. So maybe we need to first study it. Are you willing to let us do that? And he said yes. And so when we studied it, we were able to break it down into its various components. And really, that's what we need for most of our civic challenges, to break them down into their various components and take them one by one. And so, what we imagine is not, not wide river beds with lots of water flowing through and a big, riverfront space uh, with ghats, and we didn't imagine all that. We imagined simple things. We want sewage flowing through sewage lines, rainwater flowing through nalas. Any area that's around the Nala needs to be cordoned off, protected, and kept for biodiversity and biodiverse recreational spaces for people to also use. It needs to be safe. People shouldn't be falling in during the monsoon, shouldn't be swept away during the monsoon. And it needs to also create a barricade to prevent garbage and other things to be dumped in. So, not asking for too much. That was what we had in mind when we started. And we used what we call the Bertram process. This was a process that we developed when we were working on waste management in the city. How do we find out what's going on with our rivers and lakes? Where is the dashboard that shows you, who knows how many kilometers of river and nala systems are there? Where are the sewage inlets? Where is the garbage coming in from? We don't know that. So we have the baseline, which does that, specifically does that. We have 40 parameters that we assess, more actually, but 40 important ones. Then we have an onboarding and orientation. So all the various main stakeholders, how to onboard them and get them oriented to a restoration mission. Training and resource mapping, training of all the staff that are municipal, private, everyone that's going to be involved in this process, and a resource mapping. So where's the money going to come from for any kind of change that we're going to incorporate? Where are the budgets going to come from? How much is coming from philanthropy? How much do we already have? How much do we need to get in from philanthropy, which we can't access government resources? How much government resources are there that the government is willing to kind of harness into this project? So things like that need to be done. Again, not rocket science, simple but not easy. And then comes the actual on-ground work. So all of this needs to happen before, and then comes if you're going to, when you're going to do the waste management system setting, you're going to also have to set up material recovery facilities, recycling forward linkages, rejuvenation and restoration of, the dredging, desilting, the pitching of the banks and the planting and the kind of restoration for ecology as well as for people to use, and to build a buy-in so that the places that are easily accessible become recreational spaces, and the rest of it is left for biodiversity and the river. And of course, rewilding and plantation. Awareness campaigns, community engagement, major part of this. And most important, I mean, not most, as important as each step is the monitoring and maintenance, the part that generally gets left out and that funding doesn't come in for. But thankfully, we do have a funder who understands this. And so monitoring and maintenance is also being done. A lot of it is being done digitally as well. So when we started on this river restoration, really the idea was to understand what's going on. We did on-ground surveys and assessments, as well as started to use tech. Now, neither my partner nor I are engineers or come from a tech background, but we understood what was needed on ground, and we looked for what was the technology out there that we could harness. And so we brought in the experts to do orthophoto drone surveys. Then we analyzed, we could find the low-hanging fruit. Where are the spaces where we can actually create some change quickly? And where is it that the sewage is coming in from, the garbage is coming in from? We found a lot of soil mining, sand mining, brick kilns, all of this happening inside. So how much area is covered under what, and which parts are we going to take on first, which next? I think that's like the key of getting into a restoration or any of these complex projects, knowing which parts to take on first and which parts to leave for later, or to build more partnerships to take on later. Encroachments. So our way of looking at encroachments is to let them know that they're in the river basin area, in the floodplain area, and that it could be risky for them. But to focus more on protecting those areas that are not already encroached. So we don't get into removal of encroachments, for example. So this is how we've kind of balanced out the needs of such a project with practically what is possible to execute. And so climate risk readiness, things like, river boundaries, floodplains. What are the floodplains of most of these rivers? We don't know them. The irrigation department generally is responsible for demarcating this. Some cases they're done, most cases it's not. So getting that done, that was done when the URMP, Urban River Management Plan by the NIUA, was incorporated in Aurangabad with us. During this project, that's when the municipal corporation really got the boundaries marked and incorporated them into the DP plan as well. Forest pathways, desilting, bank stabilization, and a whole bunch of other interventions to be ready in case of floods, in case of drought. This is an example of the red-blue line. So every river is supposed to have a red line and a blue line. The blue line is the max flood line over the past 25 years. And the red line is the max flood line over the past 100 years. So this is generally taken as the extent of the river. But it has to be marked on maps. And that's what our previous municipal commissioner, Mr. G. Shrikant, actually got it marked on the DP map. Waste management, community part of things, the municipal corporation agreeing to organize waste collection services according to routes and route mapping and planning. and then setting up the material recovery facilities like this one, where once the segregated dry waste comes in, how it's sorted and then put into its various categories for recycling, etc. What we found whilst we were working on the Kham was that textiles was a major challenge. We keep thinking of textiles as a benign, almost a eco-friendly thing. We don't think of it as a challenge for the environment, but it's not as easily recyclable, and therefore it just comes out and it's thrown literally into nalas. And so setting up a textile recovery facility was another thing that this project got done. I think this is some influencer who made a video on it. I don't know if it plays. Are you able to hear? No, not able to hear.
Not really, Natasha. No.
Oh, okay. Maybe I just move on and then we can come back to it later if there is time. And hopefully it will go back to the if I'm getting into too much detail, let me know. Okay, I can skim through this. This is if we have waste management systems effectively organized, then this waste that comes out onto the streets and is dumped. Once you have collection systems, once you have people segregating waste, that waste stops coming out, and then you can clean up and create a small pocket park. That's what we did, so that people's imagination is ignited. If we follow rules, if we, organize systems and demand better of our own neighborhood, we can have a nice space generated for our own children. And this is where the community participating is important, and where they can actually see things, see a tangible difference. Plastic traps, barricading. So one is to get people to change behavior and all of that. The second thing is to actually create physical barriers so that waste can't be thrown into rivers and nalas. These are simple things that can be done anywhere on any river or nala. Most people use bridges as a easy access for dumping, those who want to dump waste. So therefore, we have to barricade the nala up, the bridges up, so that it's safe for the river and for people. Because if you don't have barricading during monsoons, during times when road conditions are not good, there have been cases of bikes and all kind of falling into the nala. So this helps in both ways. Then you have to, of course, trap the plastic that does come into the nala still and remove it. Blue-green spaces. Now, most of our cities are really congested and hardly have any space for creating gardens and parks and all of that, right? That's like last priority. So, however, since nalas have been neglected for so long, spaces alongside the nalas are generally, used for dumping or whatever. So once you start a restoration effort, you start recovering land, and this land, it's imperative that it gets protected for creating blue-green spaces, biodiverse spaces that actually turn into like little corridors for biodiversity because they're connected. So this is what we did also. We started with one area and now there's a 5 kilometer long connected patch almost. And actually we're working on the entire 52 kilometers. So there are 1 kilometer patches that are turned into blue-green spaces that are connected, where we've cleaned out the garbage, diverted the sewage. So this is an example of one. This was one of our first spaces. This looks all very nice and green, but these are all invasive. There's a lot of garbage that's, mixed in with the silt and layered on here. You see these two sewage lines coming in of water. That's just sewage lines that have been half built and then left. So the sewage finds its way to the river. And yeah, and that's the river coming from up here. It's all silted in, so it all floods. And that's a nala coming in from there. That's the Siddharth Garden, the zoo. So in this space, this whole area was like a marshland. You could not access it. You couldn't walk on it, even if you managed to access it. So what we had to do first was divert the sewage. clean out the marsh. So once we diverted the sewage, let me just show you the amount of it started to dry up, but there were still 2, 3 places where it was wet and like a marshy space. So we cleaned out the 4 feet of silt and garbage and textiles that was laying there. And we also cleaned out some of the invasive Mexican flora and replaced it with natives, left some spaces open for grasses. And you can see these 2 spaces. These were freshwater springs that we discovered once we diverted the sewage marsh. That actually there are freshwater springs and real little wetlands, peatlands in this space. So that could be done. This is a picture from the ground. This was that freshwater spring that we discovered while we were doing the diversion. And this is the same spot 9 months later. Right? So transformation is possible. It is quick. It can be much faster. Of course, things slow down. 1 year you'll have things moving much faster than you imagine. 2 years it'll slow down very much. We can talk about the reasons for that. But it is possible to do this. These are just some other spots. This used to be a place which had debris and cow dung, and I don't know if you can see it very well. This is a GIS kind of image, and garbage thrown here, and this is the river. So and this is a nala also coming in with sewage. And then afterwards, all that dumping and all was stopped. This space was made into it was part of the cantonment area, so it was made into a Amar Shahid Udyan with a lot of plantation. There's a little bit of civil work, but really that's minimal for the amount of trees that have been planted. And this entire patch has been made into a forest, a native forest, a small forest. And maybe I can move this. I can make it even smaller. And this is that underground, the sewage that you were seeing coming in has been piped and connected to the underground sewage system. So again, this is done through a collaborative effort. These videos are a year and a half apart. So riverfront blue-green spaces are possible to transform and to create. And what that does is then it builds interest from general public as well as from political and administrative leadership that, oh, this is visual, people want this. This was that area that has a peatland. So this pathway never existed. You could not walk. And this entire pathway has been built of C&D waste that was either lying on the location or was nearby. So this, of course, is now 2 years old. I need to give you much more up. And we have events happening at these locations. A wedding has happened. Anniversaries are celebrated. Annual day programs are held by foundations, working with kids. And so this space has become a public space. Now about the water. The water is the complex part because it needs investment in infrastructure. One is most of our sewage lines, when we're talking about transportation, everyone talks about the last mile connectivity, which is mostly missing in our cities. So with sewage also, that is a challenge. Most cities have underground sewage systems. Most cities have concealed sewage lines, but the final connection is where it's either not done or it's broken or it's clogged and therefore had to be broken and was never fixed again, which is why sewage comes straight into the river. So we did all kinds of experiments. What you can see in the middle is like plastic traps, booms. Again, these were designed by us locally using materials from the local market, not rocket science. Anyone can do it. And you can see the amount of filth that's coming in. Then the municipal corporation, once this was shown, the municipal corporation came in, built a proper, proper diversion point, decentralized sewage treatment plants. This is the MBBR tech based sewage treatment plant. And then you can see the water that flows is clear, treated. This took 5 years, 4 years, 4 years to actually get the clear water, treated water to flow. Lots of complexities, lots of objections. In fact, sometimes it flows clear, then again a sewage line breaks and it again gets polluted. So these are the problems. It's never a, once the problem solved, it's solved, and it's going to be like that for a long time. Okay, I need to move past this quickly. This is how it works, but I don't think we have time to get into this. This is the sewage diversion point. Sewage is going in and then being diverted into the sewage treatment plant. So this was when we were working in the city, seeing the success of this area, then it was decided that we would work along the length of the river, 52 kilometers. And so we've identified 21 gram panchayats that are along the river that we're working on. This is a land use land cover assessment. Again, a technology that we didn't know about, but could access and now know, and in fact have developed a tool that further takes our ground information and also makes this more effective. 300% increase in built up space, 95% decrease in forest, and 40% decrease in open grassland space in the last 35 years. Where the Kham River meets the Jayakwadi is also notified as a bird sanctuary. This is something we realized while we were doing this project. And so restoring the river and building an ecotourism angle, restoring also the bird sanctuary is part of the project now. And we won a few awards for it. And like I said, it was extended to the entire river. Also, a neighboring river called the Sukhna is being taken up. And the approach that we have taken, we have an agreement with the state government to make it into a document that can be used by other districts as well. So we're creating an app which can be then used by others. An intangible unintended outcome of creating models that work and of getting those prizes was that the Kham River just blew up on the internet. There were influencers who we didn't know, who didn't contact us, but took information and made videos and shared them. And I think that a lot of it was accurate. A lot of it was, didn't give enough equal credit to the partners. So that created trouble for us. Things like that you don't expect or imagine, are consequences of it. But the best part was people saw this and realized that this is possible. Can happen in our cities, in our towns. Our river, our nala can actually be restored. So now we come to the Sukhna River. And I won't go into the details of this, but that plan is being made. We've kind of come up with a plan. The corporation's already doing the work on ground. And, if we get funders on board, we will also be able to execute parts of this. This is the situation that it is in. As you can see, a lot of places have this, and we don't want to actually look at it, right? We try to look away, but we do have to take a long look at what the condition of our nalas and rivers are like. The imagination is that this space, will become like this, and it is possible, this space like this. We're not asking for too much. Pathways, walkways, again, only rain water flowing through the rivers, no sewage, no garbage. It's not too much to ask for. And spaces reserved for people, for recreation, for biodiversity. The work has begun by the corporation entirely. This is the Jayakwadi Reservoir. We're specifically looking at the bird sanctuary that was notified in 86, but is in desperate need for restoration. This is a part of the sanctuary. As you can see here, you have a lot of water hyacinth, agriculture happening right till the edge, hardly any grasses left, everything is overgrazed. Whatever you can see, shrubs are mostly invasive. Again here, overgrazing, garbage, not much biodiversity and flora left. and fauna also. If actually when we looked at the fish and the variety of fish, it's 95% tilapia, which is an invasive, aggressive fish that eats up the hatchlings of other local fish. You can see that this is a tree, I think, so native versus non-native, and agriculture happening right till the edge, crop residue burning, rampantly. This is within the bird sanctuary area. And yeah, these are the challenges, but this is specifically the area we're going to start working on, which is where the Kham meets the reservoir. This area, it's around 400 hectares. And we're working on how to restore this. I've never restored a bird sanctuary before, but having worked on restoring rivers and landscapes, we think that we'll be able to help get this forward, make improvements. And this is the island, which is where the Kham River meets the Jayakwadi. There's an island as well. So that's an area that we'll be first working on. That's the island. So when it's after the monsoon, it gets submerged, becomes an island like this. In the dry season, you can access it more easily, and that's what we'll be doing. This is to show you this is the Kham River downstream, just before it's meeting the reservoir. You can see it's a real river. So all these nalas that look like, what's that? Is that even a river? They do become like this if we follow them along. So they're worth working on and restoring. A lot of people first asked us, is this even worth, like, who cares? Like, it's a small little nala, just ignore it. But it actually is a river and it's worth fighting for. This is, we found like this half submerged ancient temple at the Jayakwadi. And what we found was that the fisher folks that were working along the Kham and the Jayakwadi are very keen to have alternate livelihoods. And if we work on this restoration, we can create ecotourism-based livelihoods. We've piloted them. They've worked quite well. Lots of people have gone and enjoyed themselves. And then that's, the creation of the district climate action plan is underway. The climate action cell has been set up. Because this work has happened, there's been recognition and things have moved forward. The momentum kind of builds and more work happens. We're building a tool which will make it easier for other district collectors and individuals and organizations that want to do this in their area, be able to see all the various paths and use tech to be able to guide their interventions. So that's what we're in the process of making. We have the tool. I mean, it's in a beta process right now for this region. Yeah, I think I will stop here. I have a lot more slides, but I'll stop. We'll take some questions and then maybe I'll show you some slides. I think I've stuck to my 40 minutes.
Thank you, Natasha. I think this is great, and I can see some of the questions that we already have the chat. If any one of you would like to unmute and share, please go ahead. That's a question from you.
Can I ask? Sorry.
Topic also has.
Yeah.
Okay, I can see some questions. Should I read them out or is someone asking? I can take one by one and respond.
Yeah, who was going to? Somebody had begun speaking, so I think let the
Okay.
person ask the question.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
Piyush. I put a few questions on the chat bot, but
Yes.
in fact, I had another one that was, since it's a seasonal river, what happens when it dries up? Because it looks very different, right? That place that you showed where there were some benches and some green space, when it dries up, then how do you maintain, everything?
Yeah, okay, sure. So one is it's a seasonal river, and we have no intentions to change it and make it into a perennial river. But we do want to improve the base flow. So I think you have only asked, or someone's asked about spring restoration also, which we have done. About 16 springs have been restored. Again, something we learned while we were working on this, and while this we started discovering these springs. But to answer your question specifically about the blue-green spaces and the recreational biodiverse spaces, we've planted trees and saplings that will survive in our conditions, and of course, some that will need watering. So there is some amount of irrigation and maintenance that is happening. But in the summer, when it's dry, things do dry up a little bit. It definitely looks drier than it does in the monsoon, but it's still you still have like the rain trees and some other trees, the karanj, the kadam, etc., that provide a green cover canopy. And some of them will shed, and we have a little composting site for the leaves that are shedding. We also do a lot of mulching with it. So, yeah, so it just becomes a little less green.
Right.
But it's fine, and the water flow reduces drastically. The river really flows in the monsoon, and about maybe 2 months after the monsoon. After that, if we're lucky and if all systems are working effectively and sewage hasn't found its way back into the river, then the flow comes down to a trickle, or it's a base flow that's you don't even see it. It's under the under the surface. So yeah, that's how it is.
Okay,
There are some check dams that we had found that were broken. One or two of them have been restored. Have been fixed. So therefore, some water does stand. We can hold on to water, but even that eventually percolates.
Sure. I had a few questions that I put from the chat.
Sure, I can take them.
Sure.
How
much time did the project take?
Yes. Yeah. There's just a question before that. I'll just answer that and go through this so that I don't miss it. So, was anything done to rejuvenate the spring shed recharge zones and its outlet? Yes, it was. Work has started on it and work is ongoing. So again, it's never once done and everything's been rejuvenated and so yes, work has like the identification, the planning, the where the barricades are, all of that has been identified and shared. Some of it has been executed, some of it remains to be executed. But like I said, spring restoration has been done for 16 springs, which contribute to the base flow. How much time did the project take? Again, we started in 2020. 2020, we did the study, and 2021 in Jan, we kind of started the work on ground with the dredging, desilting. April, we started the planting and all of that. And then it stretches, right? So within the first year, we were able to do 1.25 kilometers. Then the next year, we were able to get to to almost 4 kilometers. Then the year after that, we got it to around 5 kilometers of a stretch. Then things slowed down for a 9-month period. Like, nothing moved. Then again, we could add another 2.5 kilometers and started working on the rural portions where we were adding 1 kilometer per village. So that's kind of how it's been going. To do all of this work until now, it's been 5 years. Is the work complete? Is the river fully restored? Is there no pollution coming into the river? And the answer is no to all of that. But a lot of progress has been made. So that who coordinated the various stakeholders involved, that was us. So that was one of the main roles that we played, bringing stakeholders on board, getting them to align with what we want to achieve, keeping the partnership going over 5 years. And there have been hiccups, all kinds of challenges, all kinds of misgivings, misunderstandings. I have this statement: if anything can be misunderstood, it will. So, working on trying to keep the communication as clear, trying to keep all parties on board, doing a tightrope walk, that's been our role. And we've succeeded reasonably and failed miserably at times as well at it. So, but the project is still going. So I guess overall we've succeeded. Other issues that you spoke about that would be tackled, Prickens has been a challenge we've not been able to tackle. How much of the continuous maintenance is done by government local agents? How much more? So that's a great question. When originally the idea was that we would do this work and then hand over. So the work is in partnership. So all the dredging, desilting is done by municipal corporation vehicles, municipal corporation staff, but it's being done in partnership with the overall plan, right? So that's how it was done. So they continue to do it, and that's the municipal corporation that takes it on. We simply report on it. And the maintenance on the parks and gardens, the idea was that we would develop and then the corporation would maintain. Some amount of it is being maintained by the corporation, but mostly it's being maintained by us through our, Beroc, who's our funder. So that, but the sewage inlets, the sewage connections, the sewage diversion, that is entirely being done by the corporation. We simply monitor whether any new sewage line has broken, open up, that needs to be fixed. It hasn't been fixed yet. That kind of follow up, that kind of keeping the momentum going, that's what we do.
So it's going to be like a continuous involvement for you for how long?
So that's a great question. That's what we discussed also with Adyayan. Involvement for us or involvement of another agency like us, it will have to be for a long time. There will have to be monitoring and maintenance over a long time. And one of the main challenges of this is the constant flux, the constant change of administrative leadership, elected leadership, change of solid waste in charge. All the officials keep changing. Then of course other party, and it's not just municipal bodies, there are many government bodies. So if we want a system like this to continue, if you want your roads to remain in good condition, they need to be maintained by an agency long term like that. If you want a complex organism like the river be restored and maintained, it needs to be maintained by an organization whose responsibility it is and multiple organizations who it will coordinate with. So I hope I answered that. We in the beginning had a very sorry.
Thank you.
What systemic changes could you bring so that your model is replicable and sustainable?
Yeah, so like I explained, systemic changes are waste management, waste collection systems need to be organized. So route mapping, route planning. We have an app-based method of monitoring whether the vehicles have left on time, whether they've not, whether they've finished their routes or not. Then how fines can be levied. All of that we set up for the municipal corporation in their ICCC center. This is something again we developed because we had an on-ground understanding of how this works, and we could bring on board the tech support where we needed it to build what was needed for the system to work effectively. So there's that. Then there's the training, of course, of sanitation staff, of contractor staff, of how to get segregated waste, how to talk to residents, how to pitch, how to monitor. So all of this was also done. And then like the main thing is to continue with the constant monitoring. Are sewage lines breaking? Is the water getting polluted? Why is it getting polluted? Where is the breakage happening? Is the irrigation department or the drainage department fixing it? When is it going to fix it? So that kind of feedback loop has been developed as well. So these are the kind of systems that we've incorporated, but I think the main thing needed is an anchor organization that takes charge, that takes ownership to monitor, to keep the systems going. And that is consistent, and that's not constantly changing every year, every 2 years. So I hope that answers your question. Sorry?
Are the government bodies replicating your models?
So our municipal corporation itself is replicating it in the neighboring river, completely different river in the other end of the city. So the work has started there. There's an organization in Surat that's taken on our waste management system and process and is replicating it not only in one zone of Surat but also in neighboring towns.
Good.
Yeah, so we are open to sharing our methodology. Like we said, we're trying to there's a document that we've made, but we're trying to make it into an app that's user friendly, which gives you the various stages and helps you, fill in the right data to get the right feedback on how to start looking at your river and how to restore the river
Yes.
and waste.
Yes. Great work. If
Thank
model
you.
is getting replicated, in my experience, all these social issues are quite complex. But unless you can create a sustainable model, the work remains as it is. So
Yes,
since
I agree. I agree, but one is it can replicate if there is like an organization or even a government officer who really wants to do it. Like there has to be some pull that really wants to embrace all these complex moving parts and make the work happen. And to sustain it, you need
yes,
one aspect that is constant. And in this case, it
some
has been
ownership.
our
Yes,
organization. Yes.
good. Great.
Thank you. I again want to say that it's a work in progress. Everything is not completely done. What works really well for a year or 2 years can again break down, which is why we need to have the monitoring and maintenance, because our municipal systems are so dynamic, let's say.
Arshia, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, hi, it's in the chat. Did ecotourism create more waste in the region? And if so, how was that tackled?
So no, ecotourism has not created more waste in the region, because the ecotourism really has been something that we've taken people there, we've organized, so we've had a strong control over it. But the idea is that when ecotourism does start up, it'll be part of the process to make access to that place be zero waste. So you can't bring food and disposable items, for example. The women who cook food and serve people there are serving it in plates that are reusable, like steel plates. So in that way, it has been quite zero waste and low impact. But it's not like ecotourism has taken off. What we have been able to show is that there is there
A
is
potential.
scope. There's scope for ecotourism. People have paid to be taken there and to have understanding what a degraded bird sanctuary space is and how it can become. People have been interested. About 1,000 people have gone at various times, but they've been mostly monitored either by us or by like the local team of. There are a few families there who are doing the cooking and all that, so they've been monitoring. So there's been no challenge with that yet. And that will be kept in mind when we develop the plan. We are developing, and in fact, we're going to start working. We just signed the MOU yesterday with the Forest Department to start working at Jaikwadi. So it will be part of the plan.
Thanks. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you. Can you elaborate the work you have done for community ownership, especially in villages? Sure. Let me see how did you bring about a change in the attitude? Okay, it's a connected question. Yeah. Okay, even the next question. What was the incentive for the community? What was the incentive for the community members or the stakeholders involved? Okay, recycling.
And Aniket's question also is connected to community. So Priya, Bijon and Aniket's questions.
I couldn't hear that.
Priya?
Steffi, you aren't very clear. Your voice is very
Okay.
muffled. Yeah, I think all three questions are connected. You're right, Natasha. Go ahead.
Right. Okay. So community ownership in the city and the villages, actually. Right when we started, the idea was to have, we've been working in the space of waste management. So we've been working with community a lot. And we've seen the kind of interest, what builds interest, what doesn't, how much participation can you expect, how much of it is like the daily participation will be light touch, like, okay, I segregate my waste, that kind of thing. But if you want a deeper participation, it has to be planned, it has to be designed specifically with like every Saturday. This was actually an idea of our previous municipal commissioner. Every Saturday was community participation day. So there would be some event or the other whether it's a cleanup drive, a plantation drive, or Ganpati making, or color making for holies out of natural material, or all kinds of like events, snake, uh, what to do, how to identify snakes, and what to do in case of a snake sighting, those kind of workshops. Various things that the community already had and could be pulled in were done and became a regular every Saturday thing. And then there would be social media used for that. So people really started to come, and that's how the community interest got built. In the city. In the rural area, in the villages, the idea was that we will come and build your riverfront space and do all this work if you will get your waste management and sewage systems in order. We will work with, so the idea was to first set up systems for waste, get some cooperation, some, actions taken from the village itself. And then like the riverfront space is like a reward. That has worked in some villages. It has absolutely not worked in some. Some villages have really put in money also, and the Gram Sevak and the Sarpanch have come out, gone door to door, organized Gram Sabhas, like really, and then the work has moved forward like that. And in other villages, it's been like, we don't care about any of this. We have other problems. So in that case, it's been more of sitting and talking and presenting and explaining and having smaller events and starting with the riverfront to see what can be possible, and then working backwards from there. So it's been a mix, really. And I again have to say, having a solid fund, like, in this whole thing, two things have been constant: us and our funder. Actually, they've been there before us. So having that constant has helped us be flexible about how to tackle community engagement. And what we found really is two things. There's behavior change that everyone talks about, that we need to get people to do, not throw waste out into the river, not throw it into the nala, segregate it, etc. But there's also a values change, which is much harder. We found that the behavior change we can do. We have a system. We can even train others to do it in their regions. Did I mention that we also trained McKinsey.org in this process, not for rivers, but for waste in Buenos Aires and Bali? So they've implemented there, and they've started an organization called Delterra that offers this as a solution. So it's definitely something that's been standardized, that can be transferred. And the behavior change is also possible. The challenge is the values change. How do you get people to value having a clean neighborhood, in that once it's cleaned up, to make sure it continues like that? Because like many of you mentioned, right, you can't be there forever. Funders are not going to fund something forever. We can't be there forever unless someone's paying for it. And to ensure that system continues, it's needed that the people want that system to continue. And that is the change that we are currently really trying to work on. One of the things that we've developed an app where people can quickly, if you see a problem, you think, oh, garbage is starting to come, you don't know what to do about it, right? And then like, who has the time? So now everyone has a mobile phone, so you can just snap up a picture, drop the location, and it goes in, and AI helps analyze, oh, it's a garbage dump, big one, small one, urgently required, causing traffic issues, causing health issues, whatever. It analyzes that. Or it's a sewage line that's broken or whatever. And then we can create a heat map and then use that data to move things. So this is what we are currently experimenting with. I hope that answers some of your questions. So community ownership, generally also we target groups that are already out there doing work in the community, that already have that feeling of things need to change, right? So we get them on board as well. women's groups have been fantastic. Youth groups, animal welfare groups, groups like that have been part of the process. Have you been surprised at the rapidity of developing impact? The first year, because we had the stars align, we had a municipal commissioner, a funder, and us, and other groups kind of come together so beautifully. We had planned to do just a 500-meter stretch, and that's going to be the pilot, and then we will scale it. But in the first year itself, we did 1.25 kilometers and a lot more of the wards, etc. Because our municipal commissioner was really like, let's do this now. And because we were able to, every month we could see a change. So that just built that momentum in, and things moved fast, and we were really trying to keep up. And we got used to that pace for the first 2-3 years. Then we had a change of municipal commissioner. Then everything slowed down immensely, but we had to keep it going, and it did keep going, but slow. And then again, when there was a change, it picked up speed, but in a different direction. So it's been a mixed bag, really, to answer your question. Sometimes you're surprised at how fast things are changing, and it's rewarding. That's when you really feel like, yes, it's worth it. It's worth embracing all that complexity. And then there are times when you've learned, it spoils you because you can see how fast things can change, and then you feel a little helpless because things are out of your control and things slow down very much. And I think the key is to not get frustrated and to just keep on keeping on.
There's a person who's got his hand up for a long time. SG. I don't know what SG
sorry.
stands for. Sorry. So, yeah.
Just check my resume. I want to understand, Natasha, that how have you, that while you would have studied, what do you call it, glacial rivers also before taking
I'm
up.
sorry, I can't hear you very clearly. I can hear you, but I can't. Could I request you to be louder or clearer somehow? Yeah, much
Just
better.
1 second.
Better. Yes.
Just 1 second. Just give me a second. Okay. Is it better now?
Yeah, much better.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to understand is how eventually when you take up glacial rivers also, how would those challenges, cleaning those glacial rivers, be different to cleaning or restoring what are seasonal rivers, like
Okay, let me just see if I've understood your question correctly. When we take on glacial rivers, how is that going to be different from seasonal rivers? Is that right? So we have no plans to take on glacial rivers. Our focus is seasonal rivers. At the most, we will work on Godavari, which we are working on in Nashik. So that's our focus. We don't want to be stretched too thin. We've learned that the river has taught us something. This seasonal river has taught us something, which we are also learning from now of the Sukna River. And we're trying to standardize that for other seasonal rivers. And like I mentioned, most rivers in our country are seasonal. Most of the ones flowing through our river, our cities, towns, and villages are seasonal. So we need to, and these seasonal rivers are the ones that then feed into the larger perennial rivers, even the glacial rivers. So if you want to work on restoring the large, the Ganga, the Yamuna, we have to work on the feeder rivers. Even the seasonal, because most of the pollution is coming in through the seasonal rivers, the garbage, the sewage, the effluents. Yeah. So that's my answer. I don't have a plan to work on glacial rivers. Only so much we can do. Now there was a question.
There was a question, how successful do you feel?
Oh, There are times when you feel like, yes, we did it. Like when that water started to flow clear, when 54 acres of land started to become blue-green spaces for the city. And that's when you feel like, yes. And then there are times when you feel like, when is this going to become something that's adopted completely, that doesn't need us at all? Where whenever the sewage line breaks, it's instantly fixed, not requiring us to go after it. You know, that's that feeling of of when because we all feel like sustainability means once fixed, continued. It will continue that way. I think it's taking us also time to accept that that's maybe a few years down the line, maybe a few decades down the line, when our municipal systems and our government systems and our people's, accountability, that expectations of accountability will be such that sewage will not enter the nalas. It will only go into the underground sewage system or be processed in a decentralized manner. When that becomes systemic, that's when we'll truly feel like we've succeeded. Until then, I think being contacted by others who want to do this, who've already started, who are taking some of our methodology and delivering it on ground, that feels like success. That feels like, yes, it's started a movement of kinds. People have started to see that this is possible. That feels like success. So it's a mixed bag.
Roko, you want to unmute?
Yes. So, thank you so much for sharing your inspiring story. Just you have mentioned about the invasive species. So, in your restoration strategy, have you what were some of the strategy you use in order to deal with the invasive species, especially the Prosopis juliflora, which you have mentioned? And was the community dependent? Because most of the invasive species, the community, they revolve, the entire life revolves around it, and they have grown the need, they have adapted, and they have used it in their daily life. So uh, what was the strategy you used for the invasive species in your restoration strategy?
Okay, so specifically Mexican juliflora or prosopis that you mentioned, in the urban areas, there seemed to be no dependence of the residents on it. We didn't have any challenges from the community whilst removing it. What we did see, though, is that the prosopis actually protects the land from encroachment. So that was one thing that we found that the prosopis had done. But removal was through JCBs and poclains. There was no other way, entirely done by the municipal corporation. We wanted to do biochar with what came out of it, but that wasn't possible. So it was mostly used to make, kind of boundaries and fence. That's what it was mostly used for. Um, wherever possible, wherever accessible, we have removed it. And then we have replaced it with a native, like some native plantation. There are places that we've left as grasslands. There we've had to continuously remove it for a year or two, and then it has not come back again. So in many cases, we've been successful where we have done if we've removed it and not worked, then there's still permissions being sought, etc., for a year or two, then it has come right back. But where we've removed it and we've got immediate permission to plant or to create a blue-green space or whatever, then it has not come back again. So that's specifically about prosopis. There have been other, there's been Ranturas, Besharmi. And interestingly, this water hyacinth, for the first 3 years, we didn't have it at all. For the first 4 years, actually. Last year, we started to see little bits of it, and this year it has grown. So we are coming up with different methods. So the composting and all of that has been done using nets. First is how to trap it, then is how to remove it, then is what to do with it, right? So So we had to learn the process. A lot of our fisher folk helped with trapping and retrieving it. Now we're looking at creating these floating beds for agriculture. Actually, that is our latest effort to try to figure that out. And yeah, we'll see how that goes. But really, it's been removal and composting. But again, we prioritize our problems. Which problems do we want to really tackle first, and which ones do we get to later? In some cases, like I said, we've removed entirely. In some cases, we've introduced natives so that there's some competition, and then we've tried to remove the invasives. And in the Jaikwadi area, you can see there are hardly any invasives also. It's so degraded that even invasives are not able to grow. So there we are going to be very careful about removing invasives. We're going to first introduce the natives, have those grow to a certain size, and then think about removing the invasives. I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. There
I
was
think he also had a question about like the community. There was Aniket also asking that if you've talked about the government response saying that when there's a sewage perforation, then why isn't it fixed immediately is what you'd hope to see. What would you hope to see from community? From what kind of community approach would you hope to?
Yes. So that's what I mentioned. The change in where people don't feel apathetic. They don't feel like kuch nahi ho sakta, kuch nahi change ho sakta. Where they see that it is possible to change this river, and the restoration in one way for those who are living right next to it have seen that it is possible. But the second thing is to give people access to being able to complain about things, like, to report things that report challenges in their neighborhood. Most of us have tried at some point and then given up, even with all our access and all our privileges. The idea is to make it accessible to everyone to report in. And that's why we've come up with this app. It's called Love My Bharat. We've kind of done a pilot also of it. The idea would be to give people access to something, a tool with which they can easily report, and then to set up the back end to then, ideally corporators and all should take responsibility and ownership and be like, in my area, all red open complaints are going to be closed by me, right? That's what we're aiming at, building this platform out in such a way that it becomes a complete loop where a lot of complaints come in, a lot of reporting of an issue goes to the right authorities, the right corporator, the right ward office, the right representative, and then gets fixed, and then that it was fixed also gets reported so that it completes the loop. This is what we're trying to do here, and if it works here, it'll be an app that can be used in other places. But specifically to that question, I think Aniket asked, have you seen your efforts reducing over the years and the system taking it on? Yes, in some ways, like all that dredging, desilting. Previously, we had to be like, karo, bhejo aapke vehicles, we need to do this. But now it's become a system that the corporation has somehow managed, where they get the funds and then they deploy their teams and they're doing the dredging, desilting before every monsoon. So let me give you this example. Before every monsoon, they used to contract this out to a contractor who would do like a half-done job, and that would be that. Now they've built their own capabilities in like the municipal systems and capabilities itself. And because they did it in-house, they were able to save in the first year 9 crores of money, which they then invested in machinery, which they've been using since on ground. So in a way, part of it has been taken over entirely. It's being done. Some ways I feel it's being overdone, but whatever, it is being done by the government, and that's to your question, a clear answer of how it's a system now that continues. So in that case, we don't look into it at all now. Previously, we used to monitor how much in 1 kilometer, how much time, how many vehicles, all that kind of stuff. We don't do that anymore. Yeah. So dredging, desilting has been one. Sewage diversion, sewage treatment is something that we had done some pilots and all of that. When the municipal commissioner, Mr. J. Shrikant, decided that that's what he wanted to do, he really got it done. And then he has installed these decentralized sewage treatment plants and installed diversion points as well. So that was done by the corporation. And while we do look into it still, it's mostly the corporation that does it. And also the IEC contract has been given out to an agency now. So, systematizing waste collection, segregation, the stuff that we did for 40 wards is now going to be done for the whole city. The corporation is paying for it. So that's also being done. The bridge barricading. We did a few pilots. About 18 have been done by the corporation. So that has been done. I think mainly infrastructure.
Sunil, does that answer your question, or do you have more on institutionalization and integration?
Yes. Because I'm not very clear. In my view, unless any social problem is brought into the system, so that it gets followed up without effort. It becomes part of the administration and governance. Otherwise, the efforts by non-profit sector, they sort of remain islands of excellence. And then over a period of time, they just vanish.
Sunil, how long do you think that kind of
government,
thing, how long does that take to actually make that reality? To make it seamless, effortless, what is your estimation of how long does that take?
If you have proved established a proof of concept, then it works.
It works,
with
but how long before the system takes it on is the question,
and systems. If proper process and systems are in place, it gets integrated into the government system, and
Well,
government follows it.
Not. Maybe that'll happen one day, Natasha.
Yeah, let's hope so. We've had an inquiry from Daman, and that has come from the administration, and they want to make the expenses. They've brought us in. We're working with. So that's where I expect it to be institution. Like it's coming from within. So I mean, the only reason why we're going and doing this also with them is because we think that the administration there is very serious about this and wants to transform it and has tried things before on their own and just needs this one more partner to kind of help them along with it. And so, I hope that becomes the first example of a completely institutionalized. And like I mentioned, many things have been done. But Aurangabad, the next river that's being restored is entirely being like the idea was the corporations, there's no funder. We didn't go to them saying karna hai. They said karo. So it's being built in. It's not perfect, not totally the question of channelization karne ka ya nahi. Our thing is mostly nahi, it's not needed. So don't. But that is something that municipal bodies want to do. So, it's complex. So if they do channelization of the river, are we going to call that river restoration?
How many?
That might be taken up very quickly by municipal bodies. But that's not what you hope for.
How many organizations from the development sectors were involved in your initiative?
So we got many organizations involved from time to time. So it would be hard to put a number on it. So like I mentioned, women's groups, artists, groups that were conducting events.
There were no permanent partners with you from development sector?
Permanent partners from the development sector? No. I mean, I'm not sure I get the question. What kind of partners you mean?
No,
like WRI, for example. So WRI has made World Resources Institute has made the climate action plan for the city. And we partnered with them closely on it, and they have incorporated a lot of the work into that climate action plan. So that's been a partnership in a way. The NIUA came to Aurangabad, and because we had a bunch of interactions about the Kham River with them, and so the city got its first, like, it was the first city outside the Ganga River basin to have an urban river management plan. So that is, I guess, an example of development sector partnership. Yeah, and there were many other organizations like that that we, Gomukh from Pune for the hydrogeology. So like that. Is that your question?
Yes.
I'm not sure.
Okay. Oh, great. Thank you.
Yeah. So I need to
I
charge
think,
my.
yeah, thank you. I think
Shiraz
we are
is
also
there.
almost
Got
at
questions?
time.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
there's
we
been
have
one
one question from
Shiraz.
Siraj.
So
Siraj
good.
wants to know, like, am I audible?
Yeah, now you're better.
Yeah.
Okay. He wants to know if you have faced any social political challenge and how did you overcome it, if you had any, and what are your further plans for other rivers and nalas? I think you've already shared about the second part, but then if you want to address the first part, Natasha.
So social and political challenges have come and gone, and the only way to address them is to kind of, address them, deal with them, not try to ignore them. That's also something we learned the hard way. Just have to take them on. Uh, and most of these challenges, have been some of them have been really silly, right? Like ego problems. Like did not send a WhatsApp message when one should have gone and spoken in person. Like things like that just seem like nothing, but somehow are huge things and can really snowball. So yeah, so like I said, we've managed the partnership so long, so we've succeeded, but we've had many battles where we've lost. Uh, yeah, so I don't even know how to exactly answer that question. Uh, there have been challenges, and we've also gotten a lot of support from the same channels, like whether I think you are alluding to administrative, elected, that space. From the same challenges where same channels, there's been trouble, but from the same channels, there have been some champions who've really helped move things forward. So it's like I think it's really building those connections, building those partnerships truly to be able to continue these projects with all this complexity for so long. And having a cool head and having a co-founder, I think. Like, when it gets too much for me, then Gauri does all the she handles the communication, and then when it's too much for her, I handle it. So I think that has kept us going. I couldn't go into any specifics, sorry. Anything else?
Yeah, thanks, Natasha. I think this was great. A lot of questions from everybody. Thank you a lot for going on and on without a break. Thanks a lot for being here, and a very heartfelt thank you for you for this such a thoughtful and enriching evening. We are grateful for your time and for inviting us to learn about Kham River and also what it takes to create a lasting change. I would like to end with a few key takeaways. I think for us, it is like system change takes time, and lasting transformation really requires patience and persistence. And with whatever is being done, people are at the heart of the restoration. Environmental changes succeed through community ownership and collaboration. And collective action matters. Government, citizens, organization, they all have their vital role to play. And we were able to see that through your presentation on Kham River. Also, small, consistent action, they create lasting impact. Every intervention contributes to a larger change. And challenges are part of the journey, whether they are eco problems or whatever different things. There are a lot of challenges that come in between. And then staying committed is the key to sustaining progress. And models can be changed. Thank you for sharing with us about the bottom model. I think Kham River demonstrate how local solution can inspire a wider change. And I think restoring a river is um, more than about just cleaning the water. It's about rebuilding relationship between people, nature, and the future we want to create together. So thank you for this wonderful, beautiful presentation, Natasha. And thank you everyone who've been part of this, who have come with an open mind to ask so many questions, being here throughout the 1.5 hour. I think Anjana has put in a feedback form in the chat box. So please do take time, fill it up. We would like to know what kind of session you all would like to have going forward and how this session has helped you. The thing is, we are going to be also uploading this session recording on YouTube. So if you have missed any part of your friends have missed out, we will be sharing that. And also this will be available on Abhyas. I want to share a little bit about the Abhyas platform as well. Since we are all here and some people are practitioners, some people are educators, I think Abhyas, getting to know a little bit about Abhyas would help. It's an open source, it's a collaborative learning space for educators in India. It's rooted in practice, reflection, and real world insights. Uh, Anjana have also put in the link to the Abhyas platform so you can explore it. You'll find a lot of stories from practitioners put up over there that they are working on um, in the education sector. And before we leave, I think y'all can also take a moment to just kind of scan our Instagram and LinkedIn QR code as well and follow us. And stay tuned for the upcoming sessions. Thank you so much for being here and wish you a wonderful, happy weekend. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for summarizing everything so well, and for giving me this platform. Really enjoyed having this conversation and loved all the questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Natasha. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.